Dawn breaks over a frozen wasteland. Your breath fogs the air like a dragon with respiratory issues. The wind slaps your face like it's mad you exist, and not just mad, but deeply disappointed. You haven't felt your toes in 3 moons. They might still be there. You're not checking. Your mammoth-hide cloak smells like regret, fermented goat, and a hint of whatever you stepped in last night. You're wearing every scrap of fur you own, including one that may still belong to a goat now glaring at you from behind a snowbank like it's planning legal action. This is the Ice Age. It is long, it is cold, it is merciless. The trees are frozen, the rivers are solid, even your thoughts feel chilly. And somehow, you're still alive. Barely. But undeniably fashionably layered. The first strategy? Become a human burrito. Cavemen didn't just wear fur, they weaponized it. You wrapped yourself in moss, bark, old roots, and the occasional disgruntled weasel. If it didn't bite back and offered even a hint of insulation, it became clothing. Some wore fish skins. Others lined their loincloths with owl feathers and misplaced ambition. One guy stuffed his pants with fermented berries. For warmth and scent, he said with unsettling confidence, he was not invited to the cuddle pile, ever again. You didn't care about fashion. There was no winter collection. You cared about not dying. If that meant looking like a swamp rug with legs, so be it. Survival was chic. Wet, mossy, goat-scented chic. When temperatures dropped low enough to freeze your soul and your snot, you relied on one sacred tactic above all, the pile. You slept in a tangled, prehistoric heap of limbs, furs, and snoring relatives, like a pile of laundry with opinions. It smelled like wet elk, roasted beet gas, and the vague hint of someone who hasn't bathed since the last full moon. Someone always snored like a mammoth with asthma. Someone always drooled directly into your ear canal, but you didn't care. Because alone meant cold, cold meant death. Together meant mildly damp survival with bonus back pain. You tried to organize the pile by size and heat output. Biggest humans outside, smallest humans in the center. That one uncle with chronic flatulence, as far away as possible. And Jeffrey the squirrel, always in the warmest spot, curled in someone's armpit like royalty, wearing half a leaf as a tiny, smug blanket. Your diet? Desperation on a stick. You ate dried meat, root mash, crunchy beetles, mystery mushrooms, and snow, if it looked clean enough, and didn't have suspicious yellow patches. You revered fat like it was divine intervention. Lard was liquid gold. Bare fat was currency. Someone once cried, genuinely wept, when their secret stash of blubber melted into the dirt during a freak sunblink. It was treated like a funeral. There was chanting. Meals weren't about taste, they were about survival, stubbornness, and not letting your stomach eat itself out of spite. Chewing frozen bark was normal. You called it fiber and tried not to break a molar. You roasted anything that didn't scream too loud or look you in the eye, and you always fought over the fattiest piece, like it owed you back rent and emotional support. Old kills stillness. So you moved, constantly. You slapped your thighs, you jumped in place, you danced like a stressed chicken being chased by its own shadow. Kids invented games like roll in snow until numb, punch the tree, and the wildly popular but medically questionable lick the icicle and scream. Adults just called their workouts panicked pacing and hoped it counted as cardio. You weren't exercising, you were vibrating in place to avoid becoming a meat popsicle with regrets. One genius invented cave jogging, a loop around the cave that burned 2 calories, kicked up 12 clouds of dust, and nearly trampled 4 elders and 1 sacred bowl. It was banned at sunrise, but respected forever. You got creative. Cavemen were Ice Age fashion designers with no rules and plenty of desperation. You saw fur bras, moss gloves, bark earmuffs, and one guy who swore his antler boots made him faster than snow. He broke both ankles, twice. Then tried again. He is now a cautionary tale and a cave drawing. You accessorized with beet necklaces, pine cone earrings, and rock bracelets with motivational carvings. Don't die, one said. Try not to cry, said another. This is fine was carved upside down on someone's loincloth. Style didn't matter. Function did. If it kept your ears from freezing off, you wore it proudly. even if it looked like sadness stitched by a blind raccoon, even if it smelled like soup, especially if it smelled like soup. Sometimes you prayed. Not because you were religious, because you were freezing and out of ideas. You danced to imaginary fire gods. You sang to the sky with the desperation of someone who'd lost a fight with a glacier. You invented weather spirits with names like Flarb and Chilitha, and acted like they were old friends who might send sun if you just asked nicely. One guy tried to seduce the sun by yelling compliments into the snowbank. "Your rays are so warm, probably. Your light is emotionally intelligent." It didn't work, but you respected the hustle. Nib once performed a snow ritual involving beet juice, a goat skull, and interpretive humming. It summoned nothing except a deeply confused squirrel, but it made everyone feel 3% warmer, which, scientifically speaking, is enough to justify anything. Sometimes belief is the blanket, and sometimes delusion is the only thing keeping your ears attached. Caveman survival was teamwork. No one made it alone. One person guarded the entrance, squinting into the blizzard like a suspicious owl. Another fluffed the cuddle pile, carefully rotating humans like oddly shaped potatoes to keep the heat even. Someone tracked group morale using a complex system of grunts, side eyes, and eyebrow twitches. If someone smiled too long, they were clearly delirious and needed more soup. Someone always managed supplies, aka the root counter. Their job was to pace around dramatically, count frozen tubers, and give intense speeches about ration discipline while waving a stick like it was a ceremonial staff. That same person always cracked first. They'd sneak off, chew through half the stash, and come back pretending to be shocked that someone had clearly stolen everything. And then there was Jeffrey the squirrel, unofficial mascot, official chaos goblin. He stole food, he hid in blankets, he bit anyone who dared shift position mid-snuggle. But he was warm, he was relentless, and he once made eye contact while stealing a turnip with the confidence of a tax collector. So he stayed. Eventually you cracked. Everyone did. The cold didn't just freeze your body, it gnawed on your sanity like a very determined badger. One man proposed to a snowdrift. Another created a one-man opera titled I Miss the Sun, a Frosty Tragedy, complete with dramatic wailing and a finale where he tried to marry a bee. Moke attempted to eat his own shoe, claiming it smelled edible. Zug tried to make fire using nothing but sheer rage and loud screaming at a pile of sticks. Nib, ever the artist, painted a massive cave mural of warm thoughts that suspiciously resembled butts, cooked fish, and one highly detailed sun with a smug expression. You hallucinated. You cried. You whispered gentle affirmations to your toes. You made promises to the gods of warmth. You gave your left mitten a name. But no matter how far you spiraled, you always bounced back, usually right after someone slipped on a frozen mammoth turd and reminded the tribe that even in the darkest winter, schadenfreude was eternal. To survive the cold, you gave it meaning. You didn't just endure it, you mythologized it. You told stories. Around the fire, under a pile of damp furs, with noses half frozen and toes long gone to numbness, you turned pure suffering into sagas. The year of the great toe freeze, the night the fire betrayed us, the time Jeffrey stole our dinner and hid it inside a mammoth skull. These weren't just memories, they were legends in the making. You carved your struggle into the cave walls, sometimes with purpose, sometimes just to keep your hands from freezing in place. You turned every blizzard into a plotline. Every icicle became a metaphor. Every fart beneath the cuddle pile, a subplot. Because pain was easier to carry when it came with characters, a beginning, and hopefully a slightly warmer ending. Romance didn't stop in the cold. It just adapted. It evolved into something frostbitten and weirdly tender. You flirted through shared pelts, brushing arms beneath a crusty mammoth hide like it was a love poem. You whispered sweet nothings like, "Your breath doesn't smell like squirrel today," and actually meant it. You offered someone your last root nub and called it affection, and they swooned accordingly. Couples huddled extra close, giggling under shared moss blankets that smelled vaguely of soup and panic, One particularly passionate duo even carved their initials into a snow bear's frozen turd. That was commitment. That was art. That was love. Ice Age romance wasn't steamy, it was survival with heartbeats. It was snuggles layered with furs and desperation. It was synchronized shivering beneath the stars and trying not to freeze your lips together during a kiss. Cold, yes, but cute, absolutely. After enough winters, freezing practically became a holiday. You had rituals, traditions, frostbite-themed celebrations. First frost was marked by beet stew, extra huddling, and dramatic sighing that echoed through the caves like emotional smoke signals. Midwinter brought the festival of Not Dead Yet, where everyone dressed up like it was summer. Grass skirts, flower crowns made of frozen weeds, and screamed defiantly into the wind like it owed them money. Children learned to ice skate entirely by accident, usually while running and regretting it mid-sprint. Elders passed down ancient wisdom like, "Don't lick the shiny rock, trust me," and "If the snow looks too fluffy, it's probably hiding something awful." Those sayings were sacred, mostly because they were learned the hard way. And when spring finally returned, you didn't just celebrate. You danced, naked, gleeful, covered in mud and beet juice, sobbing openly into the thawing grass while your legs tried to remember how to function without icicles attached. Even the mammoths looked impressed, or alarmed, hard to tell through the fur. We live in a world of heating, thermostats, electric blankets, and thermal socks made with the dark magic of modern textile sorcery. And yet, the moment it drops to 10 DC, we act like the Ice Age has returned with a personal vendetta. We shiver dramatically. We wear puffed coats the size of small yurts, and still complain like we've been wronged by the gods of mild inconvenience. We Google things like how to warm feet faster, and can soup cure existential dread? We huddle in cafes like post-apocalyptic survivors, sip overpriced lattes that taste like vanilla disappointment, and stare out the window at the gray sky like it owes us an apology and 3 months of sunshine. But deep down, we are still cave people. Beneath the fleece and touchscreens and Wi-Fi thermostats, the primal programming remains. We still form cuddle piles on couches like it's survival instinct. We still eat too much stew and pretend it's for comfort, not just emotional insulation. We still tell long, dramatic weather stories, like, "That one time I walked to school in the snow with wet socks and trauma," as if we alone survived a national disaster. Because winter might be softer now, but our flair for the dramatic, that remains untouched by time. If the cold is everywhere, become a burrito. Wrap yourself in everything that isn't nailed down. If your friend starts singing love songs to a glacier, don't panic, just give them soup, and make sure they don't file for ice marriage. If a squirrel keeps stealing your food, stop fighting it. Accept that he now owns the house, the blanket pile, and possibly your last name. You are the descendant of weird, frost-bitten geniuses, people who looked at blizzards, yelled no, and survived anyway. They conquered the most dramatic climate tantrum in human history, armed only with moss boots, emotional resilience, terrible ideas, and wildly inappropriate cuddling strategies. And it worked. So layer up, hug someone, draw a face on your firewood and give it a name. Make a snow ritual that would confuse meteorologists. And when the wind howls, the night falls, and your toes forget they exist, remember, you were built for this. By weirdos. For weirdos. Just don't forget to pack extra moss. Seriously, you'll need it.